But the Swiss don't operate like that. They're really more organized. And once you get all those little quirks, you begin to see that it works much better for you and for your client.
Welcome to the Circuit Magazine, the #1 source of information on protection matters, the industry-leading magazine for all security professionals who want to stay ahead of the game.
Working internationally as an EP professional, today we're going to shine a spotlight on Switzerland, and we're going to talk with the one and only James Otigbah, founder and CEO of Excel Security Solutions. I'm here with Elijah Shaw. Why is working internationally, and particularly in Switzerland, of relevance to today's protector?
Well, let me first back up. I know we talked about trying to bring an international flavor to some of the episodes of the Circuit Podcast, bring in specialists from all over the world. So the fact that we're drilling down into one specific region, in this case here, Switzerland, I think is vastly interesting, because you have protectors that travel over there. They're doing work over there. And, there's a big event that'll be coming up, and I think we'll mention that in a second. But also, just you realize that protectors from all over the world have similarities, that same foundational principles that we all work off of. However, the nuances come in how we approach the different problems. And so having these guests on the podcast and listening to them and hearing their experiences and through whatever their cultural lens is, I think is really informative and helps make us in our industry more inclusive, and also just gives us a greater understanding.
And on a more practical level, now, hopefully after this session with James, we'll all find a friend in Switzerland.
Right. It expands your network for sure. Like, who do I call? Who do I know over there? So.
Absolutely. And James has very kindly come to London quite a bit. He's come to the EP Tech Forum. He knows a lot of people. Listeners, you might even have met James himself. So why then Switzerland? You mentioned the upcoming event, and maybe I'll elaborate on that. The Davos event, the World Economic Forum, this time in a May setting, 22nd to 26th of May, usually happens in January when it's nice and cold in Switzerland. It's a very big gathering with celebrities, politicians, high net worth individuals, academics, lots of things coming in and out,
and protectors.
Exactly. Why is this such a key event on the protector calendar?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it. You have such a diverse range of people, and I think the common denominator for most of them is the staggering amount of wealth that's going to be consolidated in one place. And so in terms of high value targets, that would be one. And then the other piece is because you have these high net worth individuals, from their perspective, and the event organizers, they want to cater to that. And so they're, essentially rolling out the red carpet. And as such, there are a lot of processes in place, and being able to navigate a space like that without, committing any faux pas or doing something where you find yourself on the outside, having someone who is familiar with that part of the world operating in that space, I think is going to be interesting to our listeners, because they can go, okay, if I'm ever traveling over to that part of the world, I at least have a basis in terms of how to navigate those areas.
Indeed. And, should you never travel there, obviously we imagine you're going to at some stage, and maybe even this May, but should you never travel there, the same principles apply, let's say, in DC, the DMV, where everyone is a VIP.
True.
What do you do if everybody's a VIP? Slight difference in Davos in that security is often armed, and sometimes some of the diplomatic protection go overboard. That's a bit of a difference when compared to other regions, but I think still a lot of great lessons. And I could very well imagine a celebrity you're protecting, a high net worth individual, maybe a politician, is going to be going to Switzerland at some stage.
Oh, I can tell you that FBO is going to be pretty crowded.
It is. And you're going to have to navigate everything being super expensive and super specific, but on time.
Right.
On time. Absolutely. You wouldn't want to miss it. I'll tell you what then, let's hear from James himself. Obviously, great friend of our industry and great to shine a spotlight on a region we're all going to have to pay attention to, especially this May.
And now, let's meet one of the contributors to the Circuit magazine.
Operating in Switzerland as an EP professional, we're delighted to welcome James Otigbah, co-owner of Excel Security Solutions, based out of Switzerland. John Moss and myself, we're really pleased to have you on. How are you doing?
Very fine, thank you. And I really appreciate giving the opportunity to explain how it works in Switzerland. Thank you for having me, John and Philip.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you again. I know we've seen you at a couple of the London events, and no doubt our London community know you rather well. But today we're taking this look at Switzerland. Obviously, lots of events happening in Switzerland at any one time. What do you think everybody should really better understand about working in Switzerland? Are there any preconceptions, misconceptions that you want to sort of set straight when thinking about your operating environment?
I think Switzerland is like any other location where you operate in. Generally, the languages are one of the factors, because we definitely they have their own national languages, and but English is spoken frequently by a lot of people. I wouldn't I wouldn't point out anything out of the ordinary, as long as you've done your homework and you understand all the little quirks about culture and laws. Some of the laws might be strange to people. I mean, especially when it comes to, I can just give you a typical example. If you can't leave your car running, and if it's parked up, because the Swiss tend to be very fussy about small details like that could create problems.
I like it. And that ties into some of the other podcasts that we've been doing recently about not resting on your laurels, not thinking anywhere is particularly safe, always doing your homework. But what about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, your passion for working in this particular area?
Yes, I've been in this area quite a long time. I started in 2000, and I worked for two private families, high network individuals based in Switzerland. I was responsible for their security globally. But in 2009, I set up Excel. And we primarily work with very wealthy families, individuals, and we also do corporate clients. Our main involvement here is to support companies that come over and giving them the local edge, because it's very interesting. It is a vast. There is a lot of interest in working in people coming to visit Switzerland.
And what do you like about Switzerland? What gets you up in the morning and keeps you excited about Switzerland?
It's a very beautiful country. And I think you have to appreciate the fact that it's also very well organized. I mean, when they exaggerate that the train is always on time, it is definitely, you can set your watch by it. The Swiss people are very open. I mean, they understand. They're very proud of their country, so it's very clean and well organized. And I think that helps a lot for especially people coming in for the first time. And to add to that, it is a safe country.
And to that, people coming in for the first time, and I've often been quoted as saying the uninitiated. Let's say I'm an international operator, and I just think, do you know what? I really want to work in Switzerland. I just love the idea of it. Beyond some of the little quirks of culture and language, what should they better understand before just saying, right, moving to Switzerland?
I think integration is a main point, and that it covers a lot of the language. I mean, I keep on harking on about this. Switzerland it's made up of 26 cantons, and so in each part of each canton speaks a different language, and each canton has its own autonomy to create laws. So if you come into Switzerland as an operator, you have to understand what laws are, what qualifications, what certifications, or what permits you need, and before you can just jump in and say, I want to work there. Generally, it's very, I wouldn't say it's difficult. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not that. You have to have all your eggs in one basket before you make that move. Make sure you understand where you're going. It's not that easy to just come in and say, I'm going to look for a job. It's best to try and apply for one before you come in here.
Yeah, James, you mentioned organization there, and having had the opportunity to operate in Switzerland on a number of occasions, it was certainly one of the main things that struck me on visiting the country is just how well everything runs. And in some ways, it's not that it's visible. It might be after you leave the country and you kind of realize, wow, just everything just seemed to go to clockwork. Did I just get lucky? And then you go again and again and again, and then you realize there's a reason for that. And I think as EP operators, that works, that's definitely an environment that we can appreciate and slip into really seamlessly. And in your initial the answers that you gave to Pelham's questions there, you touched on a few factors that operators should be aware of when coming to the country. And for myself, one of the big things that I've realized, and this should go across the board, but is respect. So when I come into Switzerland, I know that the level of respect that I show to my peers and to the people that I'm working with, the local partners and so on, it's really an important factor. That certainly, I mean, it's unspoken, but I get a strong sense of that. Would you agree? Is that something you can speak to?
Absolutely, and I think it's so important, especially when you're working with, not Swiss in general, but if the more respect you show them and more appreciation of their experiences, you definitely will get more out of them. I mean, I'm a bit skeptical about people who come in here and try to start dictating things and how things should operate. And I tell them, you have to be a bit more subtle in the way you approach people. And I can give you a very small example. We had a client, and the PAs used to book 3 restaurants at the same time because they weren't sure which one he was going to go to. And after about the 3rd time, the restaurant stopped taking their bookings, because they had to cancel 2, but they thought because they were throwing money around and stuff. But the Swiss don't operate like that, They're really more organized and stuff. And once they were treated, once you get all those little quirks, you begin to see that it works much better for you and for your client.
Yeah, absolutely. And totally agree with you. You should lead with respect everywhere you go. I mean, if you do that, you can't get it wrong. But for sure, I would say, some countries you need to be even more aware of it. And I would definitely say Switzerland, falls into that bracket. The other thing that you mentioned there or touched upon was the cost of things. Well, I mean, the spending money. And I think that's another thing that operators need to be aware of when they're coming to Switzerland for the first time is you're going to see a big difference in the price of things, right? And the cost.
It's a very expensive place to operate in. And I mean, I've worked with some clients or supported some clients, and when they realize how much a cappuccino costs, they nearly fall off their chair and think, wow, that's a lot of money. But it's the salaries are quite high here, so people are able to afford it. But also we have to understand as operators, in my daily life, I don't drink in the same places that these wealthy people go to or where we have to work in. So if you go to a star hotel where a coffee costs 25, the equivalent of £25, we don't do that every day in our daily life. So those are charges that I think you have to prepare your clients for. that they're going to have to take those or reduce the amount of coffee you drink, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where having good local partners and good local knowledge can really help you and assist you. And this is certainly something that we always try to tap into on the podcast when we have guests on from overseas, and expressing the importance of building these strong relationships and really maximizing them to get out of it as much as you can, both in an operating sense and also, in an organizational sense, streetwise and so on. And leading on from that, what advice have you got for operators coming to Switzerland, perhaps for the first time, but when they start working with local partners, whether that's companies like yourself, whether that's, the chauffeur and so on, good tips for working with the local partners, building the relationships, and indeed finding them in the first place. How would you say one should go about that?
Well, I think like with it's very important to find the right partners, because that makes or breaks a mission. And then, of course, once you get that partner developed, if you're going to come back repeatedly, work with those partners, keep in contact with them and stuff. But one of the main things I always say is really do your research. Don't look up a glossy website and think, this company looks good. They speak the words, they use the words. Ask for references and check on them, have a meeting, see how they operate, because I have to admit the market is not as big as we're a small country. We don't have that many companies that provide a very high level, but we have a lot of companies that say they do. So it's crucial you do your research. But once you've selected the right partner, it's a question of trust. I mean, once you work together, it depends if you're coming over and you want to run the operation, or you're just sending your client and they look after it. But it takes time to build that trust as well. But definitely do your research.
And then what do you think in terms of licensing people need on a practical level? Obviously there's different licensing regimes around the world. Would it even be possible for an SIA license holder to waltz in and do something?
That's a good question, because Switzerland has been slow to regulate their licenses simply because they were cantonal, but now they're coming up, and each canton has now implemented licensing. So what you have now is the French cantons have created what is called the Concordat, and they've collectively come together. So you're talking about cantons like Geneva, Lausanne, Freiburg, which are visited a lot by high net worth individuals and clients. And then the German side have also implemented their own system. So if you're an SIA licensed operator and you're just coming in for a few days, you could get away with operating in all the cantons. Let's say you're coming with your client, but it's best advised to check ahead and maybe inform the local police that you're going to be visiting that region. But in terms of a long stay, it's very difficult. And in general, it's very difficult for non-EU citizens. So unfortunately, for British citizens, because of Brexit, it has become even harder. I mean, for French, German, it's definitely much easier. But I would say it's practically impossible unless you have a client and you have your reason. There's a specific reason why the client wants you as a bodyguard, as opposed to somebody from the EU. But licensing wise, if you have your Concordat and you're able to get that, then it's easy to work all across Switzerland.
And in terms of post-pandemic era operations, James, where do we stand at the moment in Switzerland? I know the Swiss took it very seriously, and the restrictions that were implemented, were up there with the best of European countries. And where are we at now in April?
So, I mean, everything has everything has opened up. I mean, I think it was February 18th. They took away all the restrictions in terms of masks and gatherings. What we went through wasn't as difficult as other countries, and I could namely say one like Italy, where they were totally locked down. Switzerland encouraged people to go out into the air, but in small groups, walk in, and so you had groups of 5. And I think it was a strategic move, because lots of wealthy people moved to Switzerland to get away from even when they were able to travel. But at the moment, it's open and everything is back to normal as much as you can say,
sounds really, really attractive for some parts of the world, even now. So hopefully, if some of our listeners are not back to normal, that could be a good inspirational thing. But looking ahead, sort of not the same month as usual, Davos. I wonder what you can sort of say to that, because that's a lot of people's chief reference point. What do you think it's going to be like, especially what's it going to be like without the snow? How's it going to compare? I just want to pick your brains on it. Actually,
that's a good point. I didn't even take into consideration there might not be snow this year in Davos. That was just really... I think people are going to approach it very... I've spoken to a lot of people in regards to other events, and there was one held recently, a watch event, and people were very shocked that not a lot of people have come back in full force. They're still either not prepared to travel, or they're still waiting to see how it goes. So this will be an interesting Davos for sure. And if there's any remote, if they kind of say they're able to do it partly offline and partly online, I think that will definitely have a big effect, because people will then be able to opt out and say, no, we were not going to come. We'll do it remotely this year, or things like that. But I know there's a lot of preparation is going on. So we're getting quite a few requests and interest. But it would be very hard to give an honest answer that it's going to be back to normal. I won't be able to answer that.
And in terms of operating in Davos, James, can you just paint a picture, perhaps, for anybody who hasn't been there before, what the event is like, how long it runs for, what the logistical, strategical challenges are for an event like Davos?
That's a very good question. So the event is held in a remote mountain village, or a ski mountain village, which generally has a population about 11,000 generally. But when the whole world invades it definitely goes up to even bigger numbers. One of the challenges is accommodation, and lots of people find out. I mean, generally what the locals do is they leave Davos for the week that it's there and rent out their houses for astronomical prices, because people are really ready to pay that kind of money. Accommodation is a factor. Generally, the weather, because of course, if it's in the winter, we have winter. You have to factor in driving. You have to drive up there. You need to factor in transportation. The Swiss lock up Davos, so they even have to bring in the army to support them, especially when you have presidents. And I mean, we've had the likes of American presidents or state secretaries visiting, and they just literally, the army just takes over quite a lot of the operation. Traffic is a nightmare, getting in and out, and it's just there's one big circle where you have to you can't stop off. They block off a lot. My advice to people who are coming in is plan ahead, because again, there's also the aspects of being they have to do background checks on who's coming. Like if you have a security operator, you have to have specific badges to give you access to specific areas. And then more recently, they had introduced like a CO2 on all the vehicles. So your vehicle had to have a specific CO2 rating. So that's like modern cars. So I think, but that's something the limousine or the companies you work with will understand. Companies. Davos is it's such a big event that operators from Germany, France are involved because simply there are not enough executive protectors in Switzerland to cover that.
Yeah, it's an absolute minefield is how I would describe it. I mean, it just requires an enormous amount of planning and preparation, and then, everything can change on the day.
Yeah, and please, advice is don't expect things to happen like 2 weeks before, calling up and saying, oh, we have a client coming in, and because then, first of all, the prices just go skyrocketing because you're really you start getting desperate looking for locations to host, to accommodate your team and things. It really needs a lot of planning way before it happens.
Yeah, the other thing that you can't necessarily do at Davos, which you can in most other operating locations, and will catch out even the best operator on the first visit there, is you get dropped off in your black Mercedes S-Class. As you mentioned, the driver can't stay there, so he'll have to go off. He'll circle around if it's a short meeting, or he'll come back at a designated time. He'll send you a message. He'll tell you, I'm out front. You'll come walking out front with the principal, and there's 50 black S-Class Mercedes covered in snow, so you can't even see the number plates sometimes, right? That's always one to be aware of. Are there any other little intricacies or peculiarities with Davos that are maybe different that the first time operator needs to be aware of?
I mean, it's quite a big gathering of such a concentration of different kind of people. So you have people so you could walk into a hotel, and on the right hand side is Tony Blair and maybe the ex-prime minister, and then all of a sudden you see a group of people coming in, and it's the States. So you could be overwhelmed with the amount of teams in the field, and some are governmental, and they have priority. And then of course, if you're working with a private individual, certainly it could be overwhelming to see the amount of stuff. I mean, especially when there's an American delegate and they ship in all their cars and stuff. So and like you said, it gets a bit confusing with all the black SUVs and V classes and stuff. So yeah, it is worth experiencing once or twice to get a hand over how it works.
I think also quickly realizing that you're not going to be the biggest fish there, that your principal isn't going to be. If you're working in the private sector, you're not going to be the biggest fish there. It doesn't matter how big you think you are in the home country.
I think I tried to say that in more words than you did. I think that's exactly what you mean, because. And of course, then you have, I think the Americans, the Russians are generally big fish, but then when you have other countries who come in, they come in quite heavy. I mean, they come in with quite a lot of stuff. And knowing, that Switzerland, you're generally allowed to carry weapons. So they will definitely be armed to the teeth. And of course, it could be, it's a nice experience to see and how people operate.
I like that. Everyone's a VIP, so no one's a VIP. And a bit like DC, a little bit like Washington DC. Obviously, on steroids, but I think that's interesting. So obviously Davos happens, but once a year if it happens, which hopefully it will this time. But moving forward, we've seen you, of course, in London. It's been a pleasure to welcome you. what type of traction and movement are we seeing with the local Swiss circuit? Are there local Swiss individuals that are going on more expeditions requiring more security in, let's say, London? Or do they sort of prefer a much more low-profile approach and they just rock up in jeans and a T-shirt and no security? What can we expect?
That's a very good question. So when it comes to security, I mean, if you think about it, there was even the presidents, because we have a rotating president, don't have security, or they do, and it's really low class. So there have been scandals where the president a photo was taken of him catching the train home, and the question was asked, is there any security around our presidents? That has increased slightly because of COVID, because like with a lot of other countries, there was a bit of the country was divided. But in general, Swiss don't really want security, or if they do, it's very low profile, especially when they travel. So the most that would be expected of a high network Swiss person is if they would just ask for a security driver or a well-trained driver when they arrive in a different country. I see a change in that, and I think it's a lot to do with the next generation. So the kids are growing up and they're providing security for their kids, and the kids are getting used to that. So they kind of come in and it works. They work as partly security driver, but they provide the same the security that is required, basically.
And on a cultural level, bringing it back full circle to where we sort of started on culture, is it a bit like, I don't know, Hamburg? I don't know if you're familiar with Hamburg. People, even millionaires and multimillionaires, literally are just wearing a, M&S hoodie or M&S sweatshirt, and they don't want to be distinguished. Is there a similar thing going on, or not?
Yes, it is. I can. I mean, in certain. I live in Stade. I don't know if you've heard of Stade. It's quite a unique small mountain village. And you see quite a lot of high net worth individuals. And the other day I was walking down the street and I saw a guy and I Googled him after I saw him. And he was just casually walking down with his shopping bag from a supermarket. And he was worth like 8.5 billion, but there was no security around him. And the Swiss acknowledge who he is, but they just walk past him as if they want to be, they give them that kind of respect, It's not the same as maybe when you're somebody who is in a city like London where you have the paparazzi and stuff. We haven't reached that level yet. Everything is very low profile.
And there's that word again, respect, coming back into it, something which I think really underpins the Swiss and the country. And I'm just wondering, James, I know that you said during the pandemic, there wasn't necessarily, Switzerland was seen as a good place to be if you were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to use somewhere like that as your mountain getaway with the clean, fresh air. But do you sense that post-pandemic high net worths are in an international capacity are starting to return to the country, and travel and business is picking up back to the same levels as before? Or are we still some way off?
I think that there are two sides to that. I think the first side is due to the conflict in Ukraine, and we all know what's going on with the sanctions and stuff. We have lost a big segment of the market of individuals that usually came to Switzerland. I think that's in general in other parts of the world. But we're also seeing an opening. Like in Switzerland, Switzerland has always been attractive to high network individuals. So whenever a segment of the population starts to build wealth, for example, and that's something we've seen in the Asians are coming up. So they're beginning to send their children to international schools. And once that happens, they start looking into interest in buying locations there, whether it's for the duration of the children's education or they end up buying a nice chalet up here. So we're quite positive that the market will grow in a different direction as we lose the Eastern European market due to sanctions, that it will definitely open up to other markets.
And speaking of direction, where do you see EP evolving and the coming trends over the next year to 2 years?
Is that question related to Switzerland or in general? Well, I think so it is evolving in the right direction, because what we are meant to do, in the past, it used to be very high profile, where you had a segment of the population coming from the Middle East who come with maybe 20 bodyguards, and they want to show off that they have security around. What is happening now, it's more and more low profile, where it's people are, and that is again due to a generation change, where the children now want security, but they have seen it as a different approach. In Switzerland, I think we lack a lot of the Swiss market in terms of Swiss bodyguards, we don't, it still needs to grow, and it needs to grow with we need more people, a younger generation coming in, taking over what has been built already. We're still a few years behind in terms of, I would say, the other markets who have grown and they've had it, but we're there. I think I'm very positive of where we're going with this.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that positivity, let's harness it. Let's keep it. Let's run with it. And I very much hope to see you back in the UK very, very soon. Fantastic to look at Switzerland. Obviously, we're all looking forward to events in Davos, hopefully, if it takes place in a format that we're familiar with. But James, this has been fantastic. From John and myself, this has been another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast.
And now, let's meet one of the contributors to the Circuit magazine.
Well, now we know there's much more to Switzerland than chocolates and watches and clocks. We know absolutely.
I already knew that.
Oh, well, okay. Well, it's just me. Well, what a nice episode. Yeah. And thank you to James Otigbah. He doesn't do interviews generally. He doesn't do this type of podcast. And so it was really kind of him to share with our community his advice. Obviously, we've got the May Davos Forum coming up, but more generally, people are going to be traveling to Switzerland. What do you think today's operator could take away from the session?
Well, just as I predicted on the front end, which was just the fact that we can get these guests that are located in different parts of the world. They come in, they talk about the things that they know very well. And in this case, the environments and the regions that they know very well. And then we can pull some of that out of it and be able to apply that into the areas of operation that we're in, or have a resource when we go into that part of the world. So, having someone like him on the show, speaking authoritatively about things present and upcoming, I just think it's just a benefit to our listeners.
It is, isn't it? And the same principles of last minute might seem possible all the time, but there are some places where last minute preparations just won't work. Eaten despite your best efforts. So if that's you going to Davos, not in the snow, but in the springtime, remember to book everything now, basically.
True.
What else have we got coming up? I've seen a lot of great traction on the NABA Protector app.
Yeah, we're doing some good stuff over there. We've got some great engagement. The big thing in the NABA Protector app that we are really excited about is we've moved our weekly calls. So we were hosting these in Clubhouse, but now we've moved them inside of the app, and it's a live call. So that's it's a conversation with me, Mark James, my regular host, co-host, and we bring in a lot of interesting people and get participation from the audience, and we talk about a variety of topics. So we just talked about last week, as in a couple of days ago from this recording, is we talked about getting your dream client, like how to nail them. And it was a great conversation listening to these guys talk and the experiences that they have. And, of course, you ask yourself, does that dream client exist? But there were some compelling arguments for and against, but the benefit was that there were definitely tips and strategies to work your way towards getting that client. And I think that's what the biggest takeaway from that was. So yeah, we're enjoying that. We're having that conversation, that and other conversations for about an hour plus every week inside the NABA Protector app. And so I invite anybody who is interested in all things EP to stop by, see us live, and even come up on the stage.
And not to really spoil that, but my instant thought is, how do you know who your ideal client is? How do you find it out? And
since you weren't on the call, you're going to have to catch the replay there.
Okay. I'll have to look at it. Yes, if you, like me, were not there, you've got to watch the replay. But coming up this very week on the 29th of April, very conveniently in the EST morning, yes, and then eventually in the PST morning, but the UK afternoon, we have our Learning and Development for EP Priorities Forum, very specifically named because I guess we're trying to achieve a debate about how does the operator make sense of the training landscape out there. So many options, so many possibilities, but how do they make sense of it? And where do they focus? Do they focus on fitness? Do they focus on finance? Where do you think that's going to go? And what benefit for the listener that's going to have, Elijah?
Well, the first thing is you've got I've seen the roster. You've got an all-star lineup there. So you've got some guys that are doing it in their respective segments of the marketplace, and some great speakers that can come and talk about it authoritatively and objectively. And I think that's the great thing. When we start talking about training, people have a tendency to kind of plug their ears a little bit if it isn't what they're interested in hearing at the moment. So either, they're not looking at getting training in the next 30, 60, 90 days, or they just came off of a training program. So, they just, however, I think the concepts of training, which should be ongoing, but the concepts of training in terms of how we should be looking and how we should be approaching it is important to all protectors, because either we're going through those processes, or another member of our detail is going through those processes, or someone else who's in the room with another VIP could be or should be going through those things. And so all of us in this room here, all of us in this pot should have some degree of training. So we should have a vested interest in not only what's happening, what the latest, I don't want to say trends or fads are, but what the latest direction that the industry is going in, and be able to weigh in on that after kind of taking in the data.
Indeed. And that data that will, really help you number crunch. Does it make financial sense for me?
Sure.
Big questions, because the individual operator, probably doesn't have all year to spend training.
Correct.
And doesn't have unlimited resources.
Yeah, you have to choose where you put your pennies, that's for sure.
And this is the second iteration of our original learning and development event that we ran way back in 2020. If you were there, this will be a vast development. So very much looking forward to seeing you there. Of course, on the NABA Protector app and the BBA Connect app, we've added the special links. But if you want to see the agenda, lectern with a U.live, and we look forward to seeing it there.
Nice.
But today, I'm really pleased to see James Otigbah shine a light on Switzerland. But of course, it doesn't exist in a void. We have previously shone a light on many different geographies. I know.
Shone, is that the right word? Shone a light.
Yes, I think shone. We've shone a light.
Cast a light. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. Cast a light.
Shone. I didn't cut you, bro. I was just, wondering. I've never said the word shown in my life, so.
not shown. We've shone a light.
Shone a light.
Yes, we've shone a light. Yeah. We have cast a light. We have
yes. There's lots of lights going on.
We've done that, and for example, Hilda Nwachukwu has shown us West Africa.
Yeah.
Even my sit down with Joe Saunders did touch on Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember previously
Lee Orton. Mexico. Joe Gear.
Oh yeah, for LATAM. So let's cite today's episode within that canon.
Sure.
Lots and lots of parallels, lots of takeaways. Fantastic. Okay, from Elijah and myself, this has been a delightful look at the world of international operations, particularly in Switzerland, with James Otigbah. Thanks for joining us for another fantastic edition of the Circuit Magazine podcast.
Cheers.
You have been listening to the Circuit Magazine podcast. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to not miss an episode.